Hello everyone, welcome to hands-on ICD-10 coding tutorial, session 4, how to code diabetes. Diabetes is a very common condition, so it's very useful to learn how to code diabetes. I believe this session will not only be helpful to those new coders, teach them how to code a diabetes condition, but also it gives a lot of information about diabetes, and it will be very, very helpful to the experienced coders. First, let's get an overview of diabetes coding. So there are totally about 473 codes related to diabetes mellitus as of 2019 edition of ICD-10 CM. So to code a diabetes code, first you have to find the category code, the category of diabetes, which is usually the first 3 characters of the code. And then the 4th character will specify the complication of diabetes condition. And then the 5th and the 6th character will give more details about the complication. And sometimes you need the 7th character. So this is really important, and some more experienced coder will neglect the 7th character, forget to code the 7th character. So specifically for diabetes condition, if the diabetes affects the eye, then you have to specify left eye or right eye or bilateral. So this is is given by the 7th character. So now let's open your ICD-10 book. Because this is hands-on, so you have to get your book ready. Let's go to the book. So go to the ICD-10 code book, which is the tabular list. So in chapter 4, there's E00 to E89. So this endocrine, nutritional, and metabolic diseases. Just click the chapter 4, and then there's several sections for chapter 4, and then the second section is for diabetes only. So it's E08 to E13. Just click that. So immediately we can find that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories of diabetes. E08, which is diabetes due to underlying conditions. And the E09 is drug or chemical induced diabetes, and the E10 is type 1 diabetes, and E11 is type 2 diabetes, and finally you have E13, other specified diabetes. So if you have a book, it might be not obvious to find the 5 categories. You usually have all the codes in one section. And then on each code, you have all the code details. So this is more like your paper book. So, but still, spend time to find the 5 categories. So it's E08, E09 here for chemical-induced diabetes. And then you have E10, type 1. And E11 type 2. But again, if you use the online book, if you hide the chart code, hide the code details, so immediately you will see the 5 categories of the diabetes code. So this is like a 5,000 feet overview of the diabetes code. So and this is very helpful to the beginners if you don't know how to code diabetes. So this page will actually give you the 5 categories. So you immediately learn the 5 categories of the code. So let's go back to the slide. So we'll talk a little bit more about the diabetes categories. So we know we have 5 categories. So the first one, E11, type 2 diabetes. That's the list first here because it is the most common diabetes condition. So type 2 diabetes is also called adult onset diabetes. and it's also called non-insulin dependent diabetes, because type 2 diabetes usually don't need insulin. So, but in some cases, some patient might need insulin for type 2 diabetes. So in this case, you have to code Z79.4 for long-term use of insulin. So the next category is type 1, E10. Type 1 diabetes is also called juvenile diabetes. And also it is called insulin-dependent diabetes, because type 1 diabetes always need insulin. So in this case, we don't need to code Z79.4 because type 1 diabetes always need insulin. Actually, we don't code Z79.4 for type 1 diabetes. So the next three categories are what we usually call secondary diabetes. So E08, diabetes due to underlying conditions. So for the E08, you have to code underlying condition first, for example, cancer or malnutrition, and then E08 will be the secondary code. And E09, that's drug or chemical induced diabetes. So in this case, you also code first the drug poisoning, and then you code E09, the drug or chemical induced diabetes. And finally, we have E13, that's fifth, the last category of diabetes. So other specified diabetes. So for example, you have diabetes due to genetic defects or post-procedural diabetes. So all these three categories, so they are called secondary diabetes because you cannot code that those E08, E09, or E13 as the primary code. You only code it as a secondary code. So in a lot of cases, in the document, the category of the diabetes is not explicitly documented. So in this case, you always code to type 2 diabetes. So because type 2 diabetes is the most common diabetes, so we code type 2. This is one coding rule you have to follow. So if no information about the type of diabetes, so you just code type 2. So next slide, we'll talk about the some other diabetes code. So the first one is the pregnant-related diabetes. So in this case, if the woman is pregnant and has diabetes, you use the category O24. Also, if the newborn, then you use another diabetes category P70. So those are two for those two group of people, O24 for pregnancy and P70 for the newborn. And then if a patient has family history of diabetes, then you use code Z83.3. If the patient has personal history of gestational diabetes, you use Z86.32. And finally, if the patient is screening for diabetes mellitus, you use code Z13.1. So what's the difference between O22 and Z86.32? So if the woman currently is pregnant and has diabetes, you use O24. If in the past, if there's a history, so in the past the woman was pregnant and has diabetes, then you code Z86.32. So next we will talk about other codes related to diabetes. The first one is the long-term use of insulin. You code Z79.4. So again, we mentioned that for type 2 diabetes, so some patients might need insulin. Then for type 2, you code Z79.4. But for type 1 diabetes, the patient always needs insulin, so you don't code Z79.4. So this is really important. And then the next code related to diabetes is the insulin pump. There are 4 codes. So if the insulin pump is has mechanical breakdown, you code T85.614. If you have a displacement of insulin pump, you code T85.624. So for leakage of insulin pump, you code T85.634. And finally, for other mechanical complication of insulin pump, you code T85.694. So for all the four codes related to the insulin pump, you also need the seventh character, A, D, or S. A is for initial encounter, D is for subsequent encounter, and S is for sequela. And finally, you have overdosing of insulin. You code T38.3x1. And also you have underdosing of insulin. You code T38.3x6. So again, you need the seventh character to specify whether it's initial encounter A or subsequent encounter D, and use S for the sequela. So next we will code diabetes example. So please use the book to follow along. So the example here is that a 65-year-old female has type 2 diabetes with severe non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy with macular edema in her eye. She also has diabetic cataract. She takes insulin on a daily basis. So we have basically three conditions here. First here, and then the diabetic cataract, and then the insulin. So let's see how to code. So now just get your book out so that you can follow along. So let's go to the usually we use the traditional way of coding using the index. Go to ICD-10, the index here. No, that's index to diseases and injuries. So first we have diabetes started with D, and look for the main term diabetes. Here, diabetes or diabetic, just click that. And then the second level, the first level subterm is you look for type 2. I'll just do a search here. So here, type 2. And then we look for, okay, with, and then retinopathy. Here, retinopathy here. So the next level is the non-proliferative. So non-proliferative, that's the next level. And then finally we have severe non-proliferative. So here, severe non-proliferative. And then also we have macular edema in the eye. So this is a code we are looking for, E11.341. So let's click that code to go to the tabular list to verify the code. Here we have the code E11.341. Okay, again we have a seventh character in front of the code. That means it needs a seventh character. Just click that and choose which eye. So in this example, because which eye is not documented, so we will use the E11.3419 unspecified eye. So this is the code we are actually looking for. Okay, the second condition is diabetic cataract. So it's the same. We go to diabetic, look for diabetic, which we are already on this page, and then look for cataract here, cataract. So the code is E11.36. Diabetic type 2 diabetes mellitus with diabetic cataract. So this is the code we're looking for, E11.36. And finally, we want to look for long-term use of insulin. Long-term. So here, We have therapy, drug, long-term, and then insulin, Z79.4. Let's click this code to go to the tabular list. So long-term current use of insulin. So let's see the coding instruction notes. Just make sure you read the instruction notes. Code also and excludes. So okay, we have code this example here. So we have 3 code. First is E11.3419, and then that's the main code. And then you have E11.36 for the diabetic cataract, and then Z79.4 for long-term use of insulin. So next, we will just code the same example with the search functionality. So here, let's go to the coding page. So you just go to ICD-10 CM and coding, search the first item. Here you have type 2 diabetes, severe non-proliferative retinopathy. Let's go for that. Oh, I must type something wrong. Type 2 diabetes. Oh, retinopathy. Oh. Okay, here we go. So we have type 2 diabetes with severe non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy with macular edema. So this is the code we're looking for, E11.341. So if you look at the notes here, it will tell you the 7th character. So the other way is just to click the link to go to the tabular list for this code. So again, you reach this code, and then you see the 7th sign there. You know we need a 7th character. So click that, and then because we don't know which eye, so this is the code we are looking for, E11.3419. Okay, so let's do the search for the second code. The second code is diabetic cataract. Here, because we have type 2 diabetes with diabetic cataract. This is the code we're looking for. Or you can just type 2 here. You can get the code directly. So it's just go to the page, the tabular list, and then make sure you read the instruction notes here. So E11.36 is the code we want. So make sure you read those instruction notes, and sometimes you need to go to the section, and then or not section, the chapter. It also will have, sometimes it will have some instruction notes there too. So we coded the second code, and then finally we're looking for the third code. So we also use the search functionality. So it's long-term use of insulin. Here we get the code Z79.4. So we can go to the tabular list to verify this code. Make sure to read the instruction notes here. So again, we get the third code. So in this page, we just show you how to do the search for the code. It's much quicker than the traditional way. And finally, I will show you another feature to use Code Assistant to code diabetes. So you can go to just ICD-10 CM and then go to Code Assistant here. And then you have, you first choose diabetes. And then you choose the unrelated to pregnancy. So if it's related to pregnancy, you click here, and then newborn, you click here, screening, you click here. So most common cases unrelated to pregnancy for diabetes. And then we know it's type 2. And then we know there's eye complication. So you click here of ophthalmic complications, which means the diabetes affect the eye. So click that, and now in our case we have severe non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy. So choose this one, and then we know we have macular edema, and then we have to specify which eye. We don't know which eye, so unspecified. So here again we have the code E11.3419. That's the first code. So again, let's go back. So we just show you how to use the Code Assistant feature, and then in this way you can guarantee you will have a billable code. So you will get the most of a specific code. So as long as you click the right choice, and also we know in this way you can the software will actually prompt you to specify the 7th character if the 7th character is needed. So you will never forget the 7th character, which is a common mistake that the coders make. So again, I just want to quickly show you if you the other way to get the Code Assistant. So if you do a search for diabetes. So there's many codes here. So you then just click the Code Assistant for diabetes, and then you go to the menu, and then we go through the choice level by level, and finally you get the code. So the other way is to get the Code Assistant directly from the menu, ICD-10 CM, and then Code Assistant here, and then you can choose diabetes, and then you start from there. Thank you very much. That's the end of this session 4. Hope you know now more comfortable with coding diabetes. See you next time.